Hey guys, welcome back to the Healthy Vibe podcast. I'm Tamara Hinojosa, and today we're talking about staying productive. I know it can be tough sometimes to stay on top of things, especially with everything going on in life. School, work, social media, and just life in general. But being productive doesn't have to be stressful or overwhelming. It's all about finding a rhythm that works for you. And to help us out today, I've got a special guest, my friend, Chloe Lobato, who's so good at staying productive, even when things get hectic. We're going to talk about some simple but effective strategies to help you stay on track, whether you're studying for exams, working on a project, or just trying to get your life together. Hey Chloe, how's it going?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here and share some tips with everyone.
Of course, I'm so glad you can join us. So let's get right into it. Being productive can feel like a challenge, especially when there's so much going on. What would you say is the first step into staying productive when you have a lot to do?
Great question. Honestly, the first thing I recommend is setting clear goals. If you have a lot of things on your plate, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But breaking things down into smaller tasks makes everything feel way more manageable. Like instead of saying, I need to study for the entire test, focus on one chapter or one section at a time. It's way less stressful and keeps you motivated.
That's such a good point. Breaking things down can make them feel like less of a mountain and more like a bunch of small hills you can easily climb. I also feel like setting clear goals helps you stay focused on what you need to get done. For me, I used to get distracted with random stuff, like scrolling through social media. How do you avoid getting sidetracked when you're trying to stay productive?
I feel that. It's so easy to get distracted these days, right? One thing that really helps me is using a timer, like a Pomodoro technique. I'll work for 25 minutes straight, then take a 5-minute break. It sounds simple, but knowing that you only have to focus for a short burst makes it way easier to get in the zone. And when it's time for a break, I actually enjoy it because I've earned it.
Setting a timer for short bursts of work help you stay locked in without feeling like you're doing an endless grind. Plus, breaks are key. If you try to work for hours without resting, you'll just burn out. Okay, but what about staying motivated when things get tough? Sometimes it feels like you've been working for a while, but you're not really seeing progress. How do you keep that motivation going?
That's a good one. When I start feeling like I'm not making enough progress, I remind myself of the bigger picture. Like, I'll think about why I'm working so hard in the first place, whether it's for a future goal, finishing a school project, or something I'm passionate about. And even if it's small, I'll celebrate those little wins. Like, if I finish one task on my to-do list, I'll take a second to be like, all right, that's done. It helps me to stay positive and keep going.
I totally agree. It's so important to celebrate the small wins. It keeps you motivated and reminds you that progress is progress, no matter how small. Sometimes it's easy to forget that. All right, so what would you say is your number one productivity tip for someone who's struggling to stay on top of things?
To pick just one thing, I'd say prioritize your task. Sometimes you can have a million things to do, but not all of them are as important as others. So I try to tackle the harder or more urgent stuff first and leave the less important stuff for later. It's like getting the big heavy stuff out of the way so the rest feels lighter. I also try to be super honest with myself about what I can realistically get done in one day.
That's so smart. I've heard people talk about the eat the frog technique, where you do the hardest task first thing, and then the rest of the day feels easier. Prioritizing is definitely key to staying productive, and it helps you focus on what really matters. Before we wrap things up, is there any last piece of advice you'd like to give someone who's feeling overwhelmed and stuck in a productivity slump?
Yeah, I'd say just start. Even if it's a tiny step, just getting started can make all the difference. Don't wait for the perfect time or feel like everything has to be perfect. Starting, even if you're not feeling 100%, is often the hardest part. Once you get into it, the momentum will kick in.
That's such a good reminder. Sometimes the hardest part is just taking the first step. So yeah, just start, and the rest will follow. Thank you so much for coming on today, Chloe. You've shared so many awesome tips, and I know they're going to help a ton of people who are trying to stay productive and keep their momentum going.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope everyone listening feels a little bit more motivated now.
Alright, guys, you heard it. Break things down into smaller tasks. Use timers to stay focused, prioritize the important stuff, and don't forget to celebrate those small wins. Stay productive, but remember to take care of yourself along the way. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Vibe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who would use some productivity tips. Until next time, get stuff done and don't forget to take those breaks.